welcome to DD India. Chances are that you are watching this channel after binging on some content on Netflix, or you could be headed right there after watching this interview. After all, OTT platforms have become such an inseparable part of our lives. Today we are in conversation with someone who is the final word on content on Netflix and is leading Netflix into an exciting partnership with the Government of India to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, or 75 years of India's independence. We have with us today Bela Bajaria, Head Global TV, Netflix. Welcome to Doordarshan.
Thank you so much.
How have you been?
I'm well, thank you. I'm excited to be in India.
Absolutely, we are excited to have you with us here today.
Thank you.
What brings you to India this time?
Well, it's an exciting time to be in India, but also I'm here because I wanted to meet with a lot of our teams at Netflix in the Mumbai office and the Delhi office, but also to really have an opportunity to meet with creators, producers, directors, on-screen talent, all of these great talent that are working with us at Netflix making film and series. So I really wanted to be here and to see them in their own creative community and build, that connection. So it's been a very exciting time here so far.
And there's a lot of focus on Azadi Ki Amrit Kahaniyan. That's the campaign that the Government of India and Netflix are doing together. Tell us about the nature of the campaign. What exactly is it and the role that Netflix is playing?
So it's really a really great partnership with MIB, and what we wanted to do was really showcase different stories to really speak about, when you say independence, it's not, yes, we're going towards this, 75 years of independence, but also independence as far as characters and individuals, and what does that sort of look like. And really the partnership is to celebrate just storytelling sort of in India and showcasing amazing, extraordinary stories of people all throughout India with the world.
So how important do you think is such a campaign to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav?
I think it's very important because I think that to see a story on screen and told sort of in that storytelling way, which we see at Netflix, right? The power of characters and storytelling, that to see people, right? There's a saying, if you can see it, you can be it. And this idea of showcasing different stories in this format that we'll put out and that we produce these 2-minute short films, I think it's a very powerful thing because I think it's a way that people can connect to stories and really be inspired by somebody else's journey. And there's a lot of these stories some people may know, many people won't know, and then to provide a platform just sort of for anybody around the world to see them is very inspirational.
Stories of 7 women are being showcased as part of the campaign, and I see that Netflix is picking very strong and powerful women characters in its series and the different content that it's putting out. Was it then a natural choice to have women protagonists as part of this campaign?
Yes, we're going to do, many different sort of areas, of different sort of extraordinary, people doing these things. But we really wanted to start with, and with the partnership with IMB, we spoke about like what's that first sort of rollout and first launch, and to do sort of 7 women doing from very different walks of life, doing very different sort of extraordinary things, I think is really exciting. And, I love it at Netflix and even the shows in India too. If you look at shows like, right, Aranyak or Fame Game or recently Mai or Delhi Crime, very interesting, complicated women at the center of it telling these very powerful stories. So I love sort of that connection too, because we've done it sort of we've been on the forefront and scripted, series and films and doing it. And so I think it's great to start with women sort of in this way for the first 7.
So tell us about those 7 women icons that have been selected for the campaign.
Well, there's really a wide range of different women in there, and and it varies from the first female firefighter in India to this extraordinary woman who climbed Mount Everest and did it twice in 5 days. Like, there's things that are really extraordinary and inspiring. And I think it's also important to sort of see these stories from very different walks of life that might break certain stereotypes or expectations, right, of what a woman can or can't do or should or shouldn't do. And I think it's amazing to see how people had a dream and maybe an unconventional dream and really fought against odds to do that. And I'd say, for me, I find it very inspiring, and I have not done anything as physically daunting as some of what these women have done. But I think being an Indian woman in entertainment, first in Hollywood and now sort of, globally in this way, was a very unexpected path right back then. And so to find that drive within yourself and belief to continue to do something and maybe break a stereotype, and mostly because it also inspires other people to maybe take a different path. And I think showcasing these women in the first 7 will, I think, open up minds and imagination. And what you hope happens, which I think will happen, there'll be some young woman or young boy somewhere who will see something and that will inspire them to follow their dream.
Absolutely. Well, Netflix is now a household name, we know, and you've begun your journey with Netflix as the head of global TV in 2020, and Netflix has dramatically changed viewership patterns over the years. How do you look back at your journey?
So my journey has been, so first I was, in Hollywood, and I ran a television studio, and that was sort of interesting because I grew up as an Indian woman, Indian girl in Los Angeles from the United States. I never saw myself represented on screen, right? I didn't see somebody who looked like me, and I didn't see my story told. And so I was in sort of Hollywood for a long time, right? Made many shows and ran a studio, which was defining in that time because I was the first woman of color, even not just Indian woman, to run a major Hollywood studio. And in that, I also found that my background and my point of view allowed me sort of a different way of thinking when I looked at scripts or material and could champion different voices because I sort of came from kind of a different background that way. And then when I started at Netflix, I came in first, I started the co-licensing group and the unscripted group, and then took over and expanded all of our local language originals, right, including what you see sort of in India, and expanded storytelling around the globe. And then in 2020 took, the global TV role. And I think what is interesting for me about that personally is that it's sort of where, for me, the personal and professional connects, right? Being a part of giving a platform for voices from all over the world to showcase their local authentic stories is a very powerful thing. And we know that Hollywood has always exported stories around the world. And now to be a part, right, of a company and a service that also champions and finds local authentic stories and exports all of those stories globally instead of it just being sort of one lens. And so my journey in Netflix has been, a really, I would say, personally and professionally fulfilling one, because it really connects this kind of global feeling and aspect of storytelling and representation kind of in that way.
It's interesting that you say that you didn't see anyone like you represented on screen. You are someone who has a very diverse and global background, because you were born in London, and then you had shifted to the United States at the age of 9, where you grew up for most part, and your parents were born and raised in East Africa. I understand you are of India descent. So how much of that global background has helped you in your current role?
I think it's helped tremendously because, so I was born in London. I lived in Zambia when I was younger, and we moved to Los Angeles when I was 9. But I also grew up in this big extended Indian family, right? And that culture and the traditions, right, were not common, especially back then in the United States. And I think, and my parents would watch Bollywood films, and we watched UK things, right? We watched content in our house from lots of different places. So I think this idea of always feeling a little bit of the world, growing up in America for sure, but definitely sort of feeling connected to a different culture that wasn't sort of mainstream in the United States. So I think having that openness, and I'd say sometimes sort of just can champion different voices, because I appreciate and can see you can have a different background, a different point of view. And I think from never seeing myself on screen growing up, I also understand how powerful it is to see yourself on screen and to see your life reflected. And I do think that can be powerful. And I love our storytelling at Netflix because I think it does two things. I think in some ways it can reflect your own life, and that's a very powerful thing. where you might feel alone or isolated or just culturally, right, that you don't see yourself represented, but to see yourself represented on screen in a way is a very powerful thing. And the other thing is that we're also a window into a culture that you may not know about. And you might get a glimpse into a different culture or storytelling from a different place. And so it's a really interesting place to be, where you can be a mirror, but also a window.
And there's so much diversity in the content that is there on Netflix. You referred to it, that people of different cultures, their stories are represented here. The stories are coming in from different continents, they are cutting across genres. So how do you make sure that there is so much diversity in terms of representation? What is the process that is followed?
You know, it always comes down to, first and foremost, the vision of the storyteller. So the one thing that we do, I think sometimes people think that we do global stories or international stories, and we actually don't do that. We do very locally authentic stories, because the more local and authentic and specific something is, the more universal it becomes. And so when we do Money Heist in Spain, that is in Spanish for the Spain audience, and we want the people in Spain to love it, and they do. Clearly it connected with a global audience. And so that's really sort of the most important thing, as far as whichever country we're in, right? Whether it's Mumbai or Madrid, as far as sort of cities of where we're actually meeting with storytellers, what is their vision? What do they want to say? Because we have such a wide breadth of types of things we do, and variety and quality is very important to us, it just allows for different kinds of stories. And so in that, because I think diversity can mean many different things, but I think in that is opportunities for different storytellers. And it could be telling a story in a rural part, right, of a country. It could be really tapping into sort of more, one of the amazing languages in the South, right? And it could be very different things. And so it really is, who's the creator in that country, and what do they have to say that feels very locally and authentic to their country, and it feels very relevant in that country. And because each team in each country is locally on the ground, from the local creative community, they speak the language, they're from there, and they can greenlight their shows, is where naturally you have this amazing tapestry of very different kinds of storytelling, because you have different people in different countries, right, making those decisions.
So a lot of content is getting added on Netflix daily, we see, and some of it must be getting rejected too. I believe that one challenge before you would be to keep viewer interest alive all the time. How do you manage to do that? How do you prepare for it?
So engagement obviously is very important to us, right? And we also know that people around the world, right, everybody has a wide range of tastes and moods, right? Sometimes you're in the mood to watch a comedy. Sometimes you're in a mood, right, to really go deep into like an immersive drama. So I think that's first where the variety and quality comes in, because people have different tastes. And I think what we really try to do is we want to be best in class of all of the film and series and nonfiction and doc series we make, with a wide range of different kinds of stories to tell. I think what's also amazing, because now you see there's access to shows from around the world, right? It's very easy. You can scroll and click play, and you can watch Bridgerton, and you can scroll over and you can watch Thar, which we're just recently launching with Anil Kapoor. So you can get a wide range of shows very quickly. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of kind of access that way. So I think what's amazing is that what we want to make sure is we have best in class, variety and quality, but also that you can watch something you love that is local for you, that is in your language, but you can also watch something from Korea, and you can watch something from Spain, you can watch something from the US that would be subtitled and dubbed if you wanted that. And so I think the engagement is teams around the world and creators around the world making the best stories. But they are available for all of our members. And so I think in that way, that engagement, right, can continue to be a place that people have discovery on Netflix and love what they see.
So engagement is extremely important as an imponderable for you. Have you ever come across a situation where an idea did not appeal to you, but it found its way on some other OTT platform where it became a hit, making you review your decision?
Oh, interesting. I was trying to, I don't know. Look, I think in the business in general, right, there's many shows, right, that get pitched around, and sometimes people pass and sometimes they don't, and sometimes you take a bet on something. Many times also from the beginning of hearing something to again during development and what it becomes can be sometimes, can take on a form because so many things have to happen. So look, I definitely have things that I know that I've taken a bet on that, when I bought the show You in the US, it's called You.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yes, you've seen it. Yes. When I bought that show, it had been passed on everywhere in town. But I really believed in the writer, and I just thought it was like a really great show for our members, right? And we had that. We had it as a co-license, and we flipped it to an original. And that was, but again, I don't feel like that was sort of anybody's fault. I think we just all take different bets at different times.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely different bets at different times. Netflix has introduced us to binge watching. Do you relate with that?
I do. I mean, I love the idea of, so I like the consumer choice, and right, I'm a consumer of Netflix too, that you can choose when, how many you want to watch, right? And you want to go deep into a story, you want to watch one episode, you want to watch 3 episodes, you just want to watch a film right now and then watch, a comedy after that. It's all about consumer choice. And I do sort of appreciate that, right? That you can, it's in your own control and decision sort of making in that. And so I do think it's a very satisfying experience.
On a personal level, have you been binging on content approved by you?
I have. Sometimes I will send a note to the team, as I recently did to our UK teammate, a show that we just released called Anatomy of a Scandal. And when I had seen the first few, and again, because I try to watch everything, I was like, oh, I don't have time to watch the rest. And then I started watching an episode, and then I got sucked in until very late at night. So I'd email them and said, great job, but I'm also mad at you. Because
I totally understand. For a binge watcher, even a 6-month time gap between 2 seasons is quite long. So do you ever get these phone calls or these queries from maybe your children, your friends, that when is the next season coming?
Yes, the funny thing is, I remember, so 2 things. One, when Stranger Things launched the last time, I think it was, if it was 9 hours, it was 9 hours and 1 minute or something. I got a text, when's the next season? I was like, we just launched it 9 hours ago, right? And so this excitement, right, which we get from Money Heist too. So I think, what you love is people love the entertainment, right? And many people feel this a personal connection to Netflix, and it's theirs, right? In sort of that very personal way. And so yes, we always get, and I always say we're so happy you love it that you want it immediately. And so I think, we've been really with the returning seasons, it's great because those are fan favorite returning seasons. People get on a series, right? They love these characters. They've spent this time with them, and then you get to kind of drop back into that world again, right? Which we recently saw with Bridgerton. And I think what's really exciting looking at the India slate coming up between Bollywood Wise Season 2 and Masaba and Delhi Crime, it's we have sort of these, we have all of these returning seasons. And it's such a fun thing to, click play and kind of drop into the same familiar world that you loved.
So viewership has now shifted from television to OTT, but OTT itself has now become a competitive space. Does that make your job challenging?
I like a challenge, so that's good. Look, I think competition is great for consumers, right? I think it ultimately, again, consumer choice, and I think competition is good. I think, we still always want to be the best place for talent to work. We want the experience to be the best. We want it to be creatively fulfilling. We want members to love what we make. And so I think, there's choices out there, which, is great for consumers and good for creators, right? To have sort of a choice of what that is. So mostly the way I look at it is I always think it's obviously smart and great to be aware if you're in the business of what's happening, right, in the competitive landscape, but to really not spend too much time looking over your shoulder, because I think you can get very distracted. And I think what we have to continually do is make the best series and films. And at Netflix, our only business is making TV shows and films. We're not in any other business. Our entire business is based on taking the best bets on creative talent and making the best film and series. And so I think the focus on that, even in a competitive landscape, is to continue to do what we're doing and continue to learn and evolve.
Give us a sneak peek into what's coming next in terms of content.
Oh, there's so many good things. There's so many great, I mean, I'd say, you know what I am excited about, there's a film in India called Monica, Oh My Darling, which, you know, I just saw recently, and I met with Raj Kumar and some of the talent on there. Thar with Anil Kapoor, I'm really excited about. I think it's great that we have these returning, you know, fan favorite series, you know, including, you know, the return on a global scale of Stranger Things, right, you know, coming back. So I think there's a lot of, you know, exciting things coming. We have a doc series also called Indian Predator, which I think looking at, you know, between Bollywood-wise and Indian Predator, again, like a wide range, you know, on the doc series space. So I'm really looking forward to many of the titles, especially in India, that are coming out. And I think it builds really nicely of looking at this entire slate. And to me, if I look back even just a little bit into, right, Aranyak and Ye Kali Kali, and then doing Kapil Sharma in a very sort of very different way, and having Fame Game, and now Mai, right, and the performance in Mai, it's like she's is really powerful. So it's really been just, I think, really great and film and series sort of launching. And Gangubai launches today on Netflix too, right, which I know people loved.
Yeah. Netflix has redefined the entertainment space. What is the future of entertainment to you?
Look, I think the future of entertainment is, I think the core always is going to be what's the vision and what's the story, right? It's going to be what's the story. I think what we've seen, because you're Netflix kind of first mover sort of in this business as far as, you know, internet entertainment and having access to different kinds of storytelling. And I think what you saw probably in the last couple of years is also the growth of different languages in series. Because you used to see it a little bit more with foreign language film, right? Some would travel or somebody would drive to a cinema and watch that. And I think what's interesting to see now in entertainment is this, there's not these borders and boundaries in that way. And there's just a much more openness to different kinds of storytelling, people from different backgrounds, and I think you're just going to continue to see that grow, which I do think there's been the where do you watch something and how do you watch it? So, right, linear to OTT, and both still, you know, robust businesses, but on a service. But I do think the one thing that hasn't changed is there great storytelling, and how do you get it to the masses who are excited to watch it? And so I think this access of that and the lack and the breaking down of borders and barriers, to me, I think that's for sure, I think, here to stay, which I think is really exciting for people to actually see so many different stories from different places. Just on pure entertainment. Like, there's amazing storytelling in India, right? And then to have, and everybody in India enjoys it very much, which is great, and now really making sure that it's open in such an easy way to access it, I think is a very exciting time.
No conversation is complete between friends without talking about a new series on Netflix, or recommending one, and maybe even exchanging passwords. What are you watching these days?
Oh, I'm watching so many things, because when I take a trip around the world, and I mean just in Netflix world, not actually like the trip around the world, you know, I think there's some really great titles coming up. And, you know, recently I said I just, you know, watched Anatomy of a Scandal. I really loved the last season of Bridgerton season 2, which, you know, featured, I thought, a really interesting Indian storyline, you know, in that. And recently on the unscripted side, we just launched a show called Ultimatum, which has been very talked about in a lot of ways. I am excited for the next season of Indian Matchmaker, which is coming up too. So there's a lot of good things that are out there.
So we're all looking forward to watching all of that on Netflix, hoping for greater diversity, more women-led stories, etc. Thank you, Bela, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait for all of you to see so many of these upcoming titles that we're so excited about, right? Including returning series of Right Jamtara and Fabulous Lives of Bollywood Wives, and there's so much more coming up in Monaco My Darling on the film side, and so I'm really excited for all of you to see so much of the content we're making.
We are as excited, you bet. Thank you.
Thank you so much.